The wind howled through the trees, rattling the branches like skeletal fingers tapping against an unseen surface. We were deep in the heart of the Monongahela National Forest, miles away from the nearest town, with nothing but the dense wilderness surrounding us. It was supposed to be one last adventure before life pulled us in different directions. One final camping trip to relive our teenage years before adulthood fully took over. There were 4 of us. Jake, my best friend since childhood. Mark, the one who always pushed things too far. Lisa, Jake's girlfriend and the practical one of the group. And me, the one who had suggested this trip in the first place. I don't know why I was so drawn to the idea. Maybe it was nostalgia, maybe the longing for one last carefree moment before reality set in, or maybe it was something else entirely. Something pulling us here for reasons we couldn't yet understand. The drive up had been long, winding roads stretching endlessly through the mountains, the radio cutting in and out as we lost cell service. It was late September, and the crisp autumn air carried a scent of damp leaves and pine. The sun had just begun its descent when we finally pulled into the clearing where we planned to set up camp. It was perfect, secluded, quiet, untouched. But as we stepped out of the car, an odd silence settled over us. No birds, no rustling of small animals in the underbrush, just the whispering wind and the distant creak of the trees. Lisa was the first to comment on it. "It's weirdly quiet, isn't it?" she said, pulling her jacket tighter around her. "Probably just because we're so deep in the woods," Mark shrugged, already unloading the gear. "Come on, let's get the fire going before it gets too dark." We busied ourselves setting up the tents, gathering firewood, and settling in. The moment the first flames crackled to life, the uneasiness seemed to lift, replaced by the familiar warmth of old friends laughing and reminiscing. Stories were shared, marshmallows roasted, and for a while it felt just like old times. But then, as the firelight flickered against the surrounding trees, something shifted. Sound. Faint, almost imperceptible. A whisper carried on the wind. I glanced at Jake. "Did you hear that?" He paused, listening. The others went quiet too. For a moment there was nothing. Then there it was again, a low, breathy murmur just beyond the tree line. Lisa forced a laugh. "Probably just the wind." "Or a deer," Mark added, though there was a flicker of unease in his eyes. I wasn't so sure. The sound didn't move like an animal, didn't rise and fall like the wind. It almost sounded like words. Shaking it off, we carried on, but the mood had shifted. The laughter wasn't as easy, the conversations weren't as free-flowing. And as the fire burned lower, that feeling returned, the sensation of being watched, of something unseen lingering just beyond the reach of the flames. That night I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I swore I heard something moving outside the tent. Twigs snapping, leaves crunching, slow, deliberate circling. But every time I unzipped the tent and peeked outside, there was nothing. Just the endless, empty woods stretching into darkness. Morning came, and with it, a strange discovery. Mark's backpack, which he'd left right beside the fire pit, was now 10 feet away, partially unzipped. "I must have moved it last night," he said, though his face was pale. But we all knew he hadn't. We should have left then. Packed up, got in the car, and driven back to town. But we didn't. We ignored the warning signs, dismissed the growing unease. And that was our first mistake. Our last camping trip in West Virginia had just begun, and something out there was waiting. The morning air was sharp and cold, carrying the scent of damp earth and pine. Dew clung to the grass, making our boots wet as we moved around camp, still groggy from a restless night. None of us spoke about the noises or Mark's misplaced backpack, but I could tell it was on everyone's mind. Lisa kept glancing toward the trees, her usual calm demeanor cracked by something unspoken. Jake was unusually quiet, stirring the embers of last night's fire without his usual morning jokes. Mark, always the skeptic, acted like nothing was wrong, but the way he kept checking over his shoulder told a different story. I tried to shake off the unease. It was just a backpack, right? Maybe Mark had moved it in his sleep and forgotten. Maybe the wind had knocked it over. There had to be a logical explanation. Still, I couldn't ignore the heavy feeling in my chest, like the woods themselves were holding their breath, waiting. We ate a quick breakfast, granola bars and instant coffee, the kind that tasted like burnt dirt but did the job. The plan for the day was simple. Hike to the nearby overlook, take in the view, then come back before dark. It was about a 2-hour trek each way, nothing too strenuous, but enough to make us feel like we'd done something with the trip. As we packed our bags, Lisa hesitated. "Are we sure we want to leave the tents here?" she asked, eyes scanning the clearing. Jake gave her a reassuring smile. "No one's gonna mess with our stuff. We're in the middle of nowhere." She nodded, but I could tell she wasn't convinced. None of us were really. The trail started out easy, winding through the trees in a gentle incline. The canopy above filtered the sunlight, casting shifting patterns on the forest floor. For a while, the hike did exactly what it was supposed to. It made us forget. The tension from the night before eased as we talked and joked, reminiscing about high school and past trips. But the deeper we went, the quieter the forest became. It wasn't the normal kind of quiet. Not the peaceful stillness of nature, but something unnatural, as if the entire forest was listening. No birds, no rustling leaves, not even the distant chirp of insects. Just the sound of our footsteps crunching against the dirt path. Jake was the first to say something. "Is it just me, or is this place way too quiet?" Mark snorted. "You guys are acting like we're in a horror movie." Lisa shot him a look. "You don't think it's weird? We heard noises last night, and now this." Mark rolled his eyes but didn't respond. He didn't have to. We all felt it. Then, up ahead, something caught my eye. A break in the trees, a patch of color that didn't belong in the wilderness. As we got closer, I realized what it was. An old, tattered piece of fabric caught on a branch, faded red with time. My stomach tightened. Lisa stepped closer. "That looks like a tent," I finished for her. We exchanged glances before moving forward, the air between us thick with unease. Just beyond the fabric, partially hidden by the undergrowth, was the remains of an old campsite. The tent, or what was left of it, was torn and caved in, its poles bent at unnatural angles. The fire pit in the center was long cold, surrounded by scattered belongings. A rusted lantern, a single hiking boot, a backpack with a ripped strap. "This is old," Jake muttered, nudging a canteen with his foot. "But not like ancient." Lisa crouched down, picking up a book from the dirt. Its pages were damp and warped, but the ink was still legible. "There's a name in here," she said, tracing a finger over the inside cover. "Daniel Whitmore." "Never heard of him," Mark said. I swallowed hard, my throat dry. "Should we? I don't know, report this or something?" Jake frowned. "To who? We don't even have service out here. Besides," Mark added, "there's no body. Maybe they just left it behind." But that didn't make sense. No one just abandoned a campsite like this, especially with their gear still here. And the way the tent was torn, it didn't look like it had been left behind. It looked like it had been attacked. Lisa flipped through the book, then stopped. Her face paled. "Guys, listen to this." She cleared her throat and began to read. "Something is out here. I hear it at night, circling the tent. Thought it was an animal at first, but animals don't whisper. I saw something in the trees yesterday. Tall, thin, watching me. I don't think I'm alone." Silence. Then Mark forced a laugh, shaking his head. "Oh, come on. This is straight-up horror movie nonsense. Someone probably planted this to mess with hikers." But no one else was laughing. I glanced back at the torn tent, at the backpack still half-zipped, its contents spilling onto the forest floor. My skin crawled. Something about this place felt wrong. "We should go," Lisa said quietly, closing the book and slipping it into her bag. "Now." No one argued. The rest of the hike was tense, our easy banter replaced by watchful silence. Every snapping twig, every rustling leaf made my heart pound. I kept glancing behind us, half expecting to see something moving in the trees. But there was nothing. By the time we reached the overlook, the sky had begun to shift, the early signs of evening creeping in. The view should have been breathtaking. A vast expanse of rolling hills covered in endless forest, the kind of sight that made you feel small in the best way. But I couldn't enjoy it. All I could think about was the abandoned campsite. Lisa pulled out her phone, holding it up in the air. "Still nothing," she muttered. Jake ran a hand through his hair. "Let's head back before it gets dark." No one disagreed. The way back felt longer, the shadows stretching out as the sun dipped lower. Every now and then I swore I heard something behind us. Footsteps that stopped when we did, whispers just out of reach. But when I turned around, there was nothing but the empty trail. Then, as we neared our campsite, Mark suddenly froze. "What?" I whispered. His face had lost all color. Slowly, he lifted a hand and pointed. We followed his gaze, and my blood ran cold. Our tents were gone. Not collapsed. Not torn. Just gone. The fire pit was still there, the logs we had stacked beside it untouched. But everything else, our sleeping bags, our backpacks, even the sticks we'd used to roast marshmallows, had disappeared. Lisa let out a shaky breath. This isn't possible." Jake turned in a slow circle, his fists clenched. "Who would do this?" No one answered. Because the real question wasn't who. It was what. And then, from deep within the woods, something moved. Shadow. Watching. Waiting. Jake was the first to move. He took a slow, deliberate step toward where our tent should have been. His breathing shallow. The rest of us stood frozen, like if we stayed still long enough, reality would shift back to what it was before. But it didn't. The clearing was just as empty, just as wrong. Mark exhaled sharply, shaking his head. "This is a joke, right? One of you guys." "No one did this," Lisa interrupted, her voice unsteady. "We were all together. No one left. Someone else." She swallowed, her eyes darting to the trees. "Someone else was here." A cold wave passed through me, and suddenly, the forest didn't just feel silent. It felt hollow, like something had carved out all the normal sounds and left only the spaces in between. Jake crouched down where his tent had been, running his fingers over the flattened grass. "No drag marks," he muttered. "No signs of struggle." I glanced at Lisa. "What does that mean?" She hugged herself, her jaw tight. "It means it didn't just get taken." She hesitated. "It vanished." Mark let out a dry laugh, but it had no humor. "That's ridiculous. Tents don't just disappear." He turned, scanning the area. "Maybe an animal took our stuff. Maybe." Lisa rounded on him. "An animal packed up our tents and walked away without leaving a trace." "Really, Mark?" "Okay, well, what then?" His voice cracked slightly, betraying the fear behind his frustration. "Because if you're saying something supernatural is messing with us, I'm not buying it." No one answered. Because the truth was, none of us had an answer. A twig snapped somewhere behind us, the sound unnaturally loud in the empty clearing. My heart slammed against my ribs. Jake was already up, his hand gripping my arm. "We need to go." "Go where?" Mark asked, but he wasn't arguing anymore. He was scared. "Back to the car," Lisa said. "We'll drive to town, get help." "We don't even know where the car is," I said before I could stop myself. Everyone went still. Lisa's breath hitched. "What do you mean?" I swallowed hard. When we hiked to the overlook, we were following a marked trail. But the way back, I trailed off, looking around. The trees, the clearing, even the light, it all looked the same. Unchanged. Unforgiving. Jake rubbed his face. No, we followed the same path. We should be right where we started." Mark spun in a circle. "Then where's the road?" I turned too, my pulse hammering. The dirt path we'd taken from the car should have been right there, winding its way down toward civilization. But all we saw were trees. Endless, stretching trees. Lisa clutched her backpack like it was the only thing tethering her to reality. "This isn't happening," she whispered. But it was. A deep, low hum vibrated through the air, so subtle I almost thought I imagined it. But the others heard it too. Jake's head snapped toward the woods, his expression sharp. Mark's hands curled into fists. Then the whispering started. Soft at first, like the wind threading through the leaves, but then clearer. Words that weren't quite words. A voice that wasn't quite a voice. I took a step back. Is someone? Then Lisa screamed. We whipped around just in time to see her stumbling away from something on the ground. Her face pale, her breath ragged. Jake rushed forward. What? Then he stopped. I forced myself to look. It was a shoe. Old dirt street. Sitting half buried in the grass like it had been there for months. But it wasn't just any shoe. It was the same one we had seen at the abandoned campsite. Lisa's hands were shaking. How? Mark let out a sharp breath. We're leaving. Now. We didn't argue. The only problem was, we had no idea where to go. We started moving anyway, pushing through the undergrowth in the direction we thought the road should be. The trees were packed closer than I remembered, the air thicker, pressing in from all sides. Every few steps I swore I heard something behind us. The crunch of leaves, the rustle of branches, the whispering always just at the edge of hearing. Lisa kept glancing at her phone, even though we all knew there was no signal. Mark's usual bravado had vanished. His shoulders tense as he muttered to himself under his breath. Jake was the only one who stayed quiet. His jaw locked, eyes darting between the trees. Then he stopped so suddenly I nearly walked into him. Guys, he said, his voice flat. We followed his gaze. The tents were back. All of them. Set up exactly where they had been before. No one moved. No one spoke. Lisa was the first to break. No, we left. We walked away. Mark backed up a step. This is some kind of trick. Someone's messing with us. Jake didn't move. Then where are they? That was the worst part. The clearing was empty. No footprints. No signs of movement. Just our tents, standing there like they had never been gone. I wanted to run. Every instinct screamed at me to leave, to get as far from this place as possible. But where would we go? We were already lost. Lisa grabbed my hand, her grip ice cold. We're not staying here, she said, her voice shaking. Agreed, Jake said. Mark hesitated. But our stuff. I don't care about the stuff, Lisa snapped. I want to get out of here. Mark opened his mouth to argue but then stopped. He knew. We all knew. Then, from deep within the woods, something laughed. It wasn't human. And it wasn't far away. No one moved. No one breathed. The laughter, if you could even call it that, wasn't normal. It was wrong, stretched, hollow, like it had been pulled from something that had never laughed before and didn't quite know how. It echoed through the trees, curling around us like invisible fingers. Lisa's grip on my hand tightened to the point of pain. Did you hear that? She whispered, even though we all had. Jake took a slow, careful step backward. We need to go, he said, his voice barely above a breath. Now. No one argued. We turned away from the campsite, if it even was our campsite, and moved quickly, weaving through the trees without any real sense of direction. It didn't matter. We just had to put distance between us and whatever that was. The forest felt endless, stretching on forever in every direction. The air had changed, too. Heavier, damp, like the woods were closing in around us. Mark was breathing hard, his steps frantic. This doesn't make sense, he muttered. We should have hit the road by now. We weren't that far. Lisa's voice was strained. Maybe we're going in circles. I didn't want to say it, but I had the same thought. The trees all looked the same, towering and unmarked. The deeper we went, the more it felt like we weren't moving at all, just trapped in the same stretch of forest over and over again. Then, up ahead something caught my eye. Shape. Dark. Ill. I grabbed Jake's arm, pulling him to a stop. The others froze too, following my gaze. Between the trees, just barely visible through the shadows, was a figure. It wasn't moving. It wasn't doing anything. Just standing. Lisa sucked in a sharp breath. What? Before she could finish, the figure twitched. Not a normal movement, Not a shift of weight or a turn of the head. A sharp, jerking motion like something had yanked it forward. I felt my stomach drop. Mark took a slow step back. That's... The figure twitched again. Then it moved. Not toward us, not at first. It shifted in a way that didn't make sense, like it was trying to remember how to walk. Every step was unnatural, stiff, like its limbs weren't quite connected right. Then it turned its head. And I saw its face. Or rather, the lack of one. There were no eyes, no mouth, no features at all. Just smooth, pale skin stretching where a face should be. Then, without warning, it ran. Straight for us. Lisa screamed. Mark cursed. Jake grabbed my wrist, yanking me into motion. We ran, faster than we ever had in our lives, crashing through the underbrush, tearing through branches and roots that clawed at our legs. Behind us, the sound of footsteps pounded against the earth. Fast. Too fast. I didn't look back. Couldn't. We broke through the trees and stumbled into another clearing, our legs burning, our lungs on fire. The moment we stopped, the footsteps vanished. As if they had never been there. Lisa doubled over, gasping for breath. What the hell was that? Mark spun in frantic circles. Where did it go? I turned back toward the trees, my chest heaving. There was nothing. No figure. No sound. Just the endless, empty woods. Jake's face was pale. This isn't real. Lisa shook her head. No, it is. And it's playing with us. I didn't want to believe it, but she was right. Something was toying with us, leading us in circles, pushing us deeper into the forest. Then I saw it. Just beyond the clearing, half hidden in the shadows. Structure. Small old barely standing. Cabin. Lisa followed my gaze. Do you think? Jake didn't let her finish. I don't care. It's shelter. Mark hesitated. What if? Then we'll deal with it, Jake snapped. We didn't have a better plan. We moved toward the cabin as quickly as we could, our bodies aching, our nerves frayed. The door was slightly open, creaking in the breeze. The inside was dark, but at that moment it didn't matter. We just needed to be somewhere, anywhere, other than out in the open. Jake pushed the door the rest of the way and stepped inside. The air was stale, thick with dust and something else. Something rotten. Lisa gagged. Oh my God! I swallowed hard. The place looked like it had been abandoned for years. Wooden beams sagging, furniture covered in dirt and cobwebs. But there were signs that someone or something had been here recently. A single chair sat in the center of the room, perfectly placed. A candle, burned down to a nub, rested on the table. And on the far wall, scratched into the wood, were words. Don't look for it. Jake exhaled sharply. Great. That's not creepy at all. Lisa's voice was barely a whisper. Look for what? Mark, standing near the window, went rigid. Guys! We turned. Outside, in the darkness between the trees, the figure was standing there, waiting. No one moved. No one breathed. The figure stood motionless in the shadows just beyond the tree line, its faceless head tilted slightly, as if listening. The air inside the cabin felt suffocating, heavy with something unseen pressing against our lungs. I could hear Lisa's shaky breathing behind me, feel the way Jake's shoulders tensed. Mark hadn't moved from the window, his fingers gripping the rotting frame so hard I thought it might snap. Then, without warning, the figure twitched again. That same unnatural jerk, like something was pulling its strings. My stomach twisted. Lisa whispered, "It's watching us." Jake slowly reached for the door, as if closing it would somehow make it all go away. His fingers barely grazed the handle when the cabin lights flickered on. For a second, the room was bathed in a sickly yellow glow. The bulb hanging from the ceiling swung slightly, casting shadows that seemed to move on their own. Then the lights went out again. And the whispering started. Not outside. Inside. Came from the walls, the floor, the very air around us. Dozens of voices overlapping, whispering in a language I couldn't understand. The words slithered through the cabin like something alive, wrapping around my ears, crawling down my spine. Mark stumbled away from the window, his face pale. This isn't possible. The whispering grew louder, more urgent. Then something knocked on the cabin door. 1, 2, 3 slow, deliberate knocks. Lisa let out a strangled gasp. Jake backed away from the door, shaking his head. No. No, no, no. The knocks came again. This time faster. Harder. Bang. 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 The entire cabin seemed to tremble. The whispers turned into a low, humming drone, vibrating in my bones. The candle on the table flickered violently, though there was no wind. Then, just as suddenly as it started, everything went silent. The whispers stopped. The knocking stopped. The only sound was the rapid, uneven breaths coming from the four of us. Lisa whispered, "Is it gone?" No one answered. Mark took a cautious step toward the door, his fingers shaking as he reached for the handle. Every nerve in my body screamed for him to stop, but I couldn't speak. My voice was trapped in my throat, frozen with the fear pressing down on me like a weight. Mark gritted his teeth and yanked the door open. The clearing outside was empty. No figure, no movement, just the swaying of the trees under an unmoving sky. Lisa let out a breath. Oh, thank God. Then Mark turned back to us, his face drained of all color. What? Jake asked. What is it? Mark didn't respond. He just lifted a trembling hand and pointed behind us. Turn. The words on the cabin wall had changed. You let it in. My blood turned to ice. Lisa stumbled backward, shaking her head. No. No, we didn't. The whispering started again, this time right behind me. I spun around, but there was nothing there. Just empty space. Just shadows stretching unnaturally across the wooden floor. Then the floorboards creaked. Something was inside the cabin with us. Jake grabbed my arm and yanked me toward the door. Out. Now. We didn't hesitate. We ran. Lisa was the first out the door, her breath ragged. Mark was right behind her, then Jake, then me. The moment my foot hit the grass outside, the cabin door slammed shut behind us with a deafening crack. For a moment none of us spoke. Then Lisa turned back toward the cabin, shaking her head. What the hell is happening? I wanted to answer, but I couldn't. My gaze was locked on the door, on the words still changing across the wood. They twisted and shifted before our eyes, the scratches deepening, rearranging into something new. The air went still. Then the cabin door creaked open on its own. And inside, standing in the darkness, was one of us. Perfect copy. It wore my face. But it wasn't me. No one spoke. No one moved. I couldn't breathe. The thing standing in the doorway wasn't just similar to me. It was me. Same face, same clothes, same terrified expression frozen on its features. But there was something wrong with its eyes. Too dark. Too empty. Jake took a sharp step back. What the hell is that? Lisa clutched my arm, her nails digging into my skin. Mark let out a strangled breath. That's not possible, he whispered. The copy tilted its head, watching us. Then slowly it smiled. A hollow, stretched too wide smile that sent a deep, primal terror ripping through me. Took a step forward. No, I breathed. It mimicked me, opening its mouth at the exact same time, saying the exact same word in the exact same tone. Panic clawed at my chest. Jake grabbed my wrist. We're not staying here. He turned to run, but the moment we moved, the air shifted. The trees around us blurred, stretching like melting wax. The ground tilted beneath my feet. A sound, low and distorted, rumbled through the clearing, laughter. Not human. Not right. And then suddenly the forest was gone. We were standing back in our original campsite. The fire was still burning, crackling like nothing had ever happened. Our tents were set up exactly as we had left them. The woods were quiet, still, like they had been when we first arrived. Lisa turned in frantic circles. No, no, no. Mark's face was pale. We were just there. That cabin. But the cabin was gone. The clearing, the twisted trees, the thing that had worn my face, All of it had vanished like a nightmare slipping away after waking up. Jake ran a hand through his hair. This isn't possible. Felt sick. It was real. The silence around us was deafening. No wind. No rustling branches. Just the soft, steady crackle of the fire. Lisa stepped toward the tents. We should go. We should pack up and leave right now. Jake nodded. Agreed. Mark hesitated. What if we're not really back? No one had an answer. Then, behind us, something snapped. We spun around. A single, perfect footprint had appeared in the dirt. Just one. Fresh. Barefoot. Leading toward our tents. My breath hitched. Lisa's hand clamped over her mouth. Then, before any of us could react, the tent closest to us unzipped from the inside. The flap peeled back slowly, deliberately. And someone stepped out. Someone who looked exactly like Lisa. She was wearing Lisa's jacket. Lisa's shoes. Her hair was tied back the way Lisa always did when she was nervous. But her eyes, they were wrong. Too dark. Too empty. She smiled. That same stretched, unnatural smile. And in my voice she said, "We should go." Turned to Lisa. The real Lisa. She was shaking. Mark whispered, What if we never left?" The Lisa copy took another step forward, still smiling, still watching. And just before the fire flickered out, plunging the campsite into darkness, I saw something else. More tents unzipping. More figures stepping out. More versions of us. I couldn't move. My mind screamed at me to run, but my legs were frozen. I couldn't stop staring at them, us. The figures stepping out of the tents, moving in eerie silence, their smiles stretching too wide. Each one a perfect copy, down to the smallest details, except for those hollow, lifeless eyes. Lisa gasped beside me. No, this isn't real. Mark took a shaky step backward. We have to go. Jake was already moving. He grabbed Lisa's arm, then mine. Now! We turned and ran. Branches whipped at my face as we tore through the woods, feet pounding against the dirt. My breath came in ragged gasps, my chest burning, but I didn't dare slow down. I could hear them behind us, our copies, moving without effort, without sound, keeping pace. A voice that sounded exactly like mine called out from behind. "You can't leave." Lisa let out a strangled sob. "Shut up. Shut up." I didn't look back. Somewhere in the distance, I saw the flicker of headlights, our car. Parked exactly where we had left it. Jake saw it too. Go. Just go. Mark reached it first, fumbling with the keys. His hands were shaking so badly that he dropped them. He cursed, scrambling to grab them from the dirt. I risked a glance over my shoulder. The copies had stopped at the tree line. They stood in perfect stillness, watching. Their smiles never wavered. Lisa wrenched open the car door and dove into the back seat. Jake shoved me toward the front passenger side, nearly pushing me in. Mark got the engine started, the headlights flooding the trees in harsh white light. For a split second I thought we were safe. Then I saw her, the other me. She was standing closest to the car, right at the edge of the light. No movement, no expression, just that awful, knowing smile. She lifted a hand. Slowly, deliberately, and waved. Mark slammed his foot on the gas. The tires spun against the dirt before catching, and then we were flying down the winding forest road. Trees blurred past the windows. No one spoke. No one looked back. I don't remember how long we drove. Felt like hours. The silence in the car was thick, suffocating. Lisa was curled up in the back seat, her arms wrapped around herself, rocking slightly. Jake just stared ahead, his knuckles white against his jeans. Mark's grip on the wheel was so tight I thought it might snap. It wasn't until we hit the highway that I dared to speak. "What?" My voice cracked. I swallowed hard. "What just happened?" No one answered. Jake exhaled, pressing a hand over his face. "That wasn't real. It couldn't be real." Lisa let out a humorless laugh. "Then explain it." Mark shook his head. "I don't want to. I just want to go home." We didn't stop driving. Not for food, not for gas. We should have been exhausted, but none of us could sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw them. Saw me. We finally made it back to town just before sunrise. The second Mark pulled into my driveway, I was already unbuckling my seatbelt. I needed to get inside. To lock the door. To pretend none of this had happened. Lisa hesitated before getting out. We should talk about this. Jake ran a hand through his hair. I don't think I ever want to talk about this again. Mark just nodded. Agreed. I wasn't sure what to say. What could I say? Nothing about this made sense. But as I stood in my driveway, staring at the three people I had known for years, I had a horrible thought. What if we didn't make it out? What if the ones standing here now weren't really us? Lisa's voice wavered. We're okay, right? No one answered. Jake forced a smile, but it didn't reach his eyes. Yeah, we're fine. Mark nodded, gripping the steering wheel like he couldn't wait to leave. We should all get some rest. I nodded too, even though my skin was crawling. Yeah, rest. One by one they got back in the car. Lisa glanced at me one last time before Mark pulled away. I stood there, watching the taillights fade into the distance, heart pounding in my chest. Then slowly I turned toward my house. The porch light was still on, just like I had left it. My front door was locked. Everything was exactly how it should be. But as I reached for my keys, a chill crept down my spine. Through the window I could see my living room. Couch. Coffee table. The framed picture of me and my friends sitting by the fireplace. And then I saw something else. Something that made my blood run cold. Figure sitting on my couch. Same hair. Same clothes. Same face. It was me. And it was smiling.